In this Limewood carving by a German artist called Hans Thoman, created around 1515, we have this exquisite carving of a subject known as the Holy Kinship. And that really is a representation of the expanded family of the Virgin Mary. So here we see the Virgin Mary standing with this beautiful cascading hair, perfectly cut into that limewood. She is supporting her child, the young Jesus here, who's very playfully looking back at her, who is on the lap of the Virgin Mary's mother, St. Anne. And in fact, this entire family is expanded because according to medieval legend, St. Anne had two subsequent husbands after her first. And so we see her three husbands portrayed above these women. And in fact, with each of her husbands, she is said to have had one daughter. So we have the Virgin Mary here and her two half-sisters on either side with their progeny. And this artist has also expanded the family even further to include St. Elizabeth with the young John the Baptist here, and two lesser-known figures at the opposite side, Emilia and her son, St. Servatius.
I love the naturalism of these interactions. This child with its sort of foot sticking out and its sweet little naked bottom, feeding vigorously at the breast.
On my side, these children are tugging at each other's hair.
Yeah, this is real rough and tumble, isn't it? The sort of explosion outwards of this family, in a way, I think, is a way of dealing with a problem that Mary was, in Christian tradition, is celebrated as a virgin, in many Christian traditions as always a virgin throughout her life. And yet there are references in the Bible to Jesus' brothers, and some traditions read this as either meaning that her husband Joseph had had a previous marriage with children, or that brothers also covered cousins. And here we have that solution, that cousin solution, in abundance, all this rough and tumble of cousins interacting with each other and playing, and giving Jesus himself this wonderful range of other children with whom to grow up. But all of this is being imagined as a way of dealing with what must have seemed very odd to a medieval Christian society, for whom extended families were crucial to how you brought up your children. It must have seemed very odd to them to try and imagine such a sort of small family unit as this virgin mother, her single child, and elderly father. So they're sort of compensating, if you like, for a lack, but it creates this wonderful abundance, and that very relatable depiction of families that medieval Germans would have known and understood.
And you think this expansion on the Virgin's story and her backstory is in some ways an attempt to make up for the lack of this account that we have in the Gospels? We have the genealogy of Joseph, but we don't have one for the Virgin Mary. Absolutely,
because Mary is so much more important in Christian devotion than Joseph. So I think they're sort of building a comparable, as you say, backstory for her to Joseph's, which enables us to imagine this really extraordinary matriarchal dynasty. I mean, this image has plenty of men in it, but it's really the women who give structure and life to it. And I think that is all part of devotion to Mary, but it's a sort of ramifying devotion to Mary, which brings lots more women into the picture and their male supporters.
And in this scene of Holy Kinship, Mary is surrounded by all of these figures, these women, especially as you've mentioned. And that's quite distinct from how we expect to see her represented. More often she's alone or with the Christ child, and the focus is really on her specific role independently.
Here she's sharing her son with his grandmother, her mother, and in some sense with this wider group. But we're going to zoom back in and look at that relationship just between her and her child, Mary and her child, in the film that follows, and the variety of ways in which that's been represented in traditional Christian iconography.